So I was just meeting with a client, and he brought up Ralph Klein, who was the premier of Alberta many years ago. He's since passed. And I have a story about Ralph Klein that I thought, you know what, I'm going to share that. He's an unsung hero in my mind. He was responsible for bringing the SEX registry, offender registry, into Canada. It started with our province of Alberta. And I had spent 2 years trying to get the SOR brought into Canada. It was basically copying something that was in the States, their registry. And for 2 years, I fought so darn hard. And Lawrence Macaulay was the Liberal justice minister at the time, and he didn't want it. Imagine that. The Liberals didn't want to protect kids, and they didn't want to do the right thing. So, so I thought, okay, I'm getting pretty tired of, wall after wall with Lawrence Macaulay. And he was writing me emails, right, and saying it's not in our not interest of the Liberal Party at this time. We don't have time for this. We have other, programs in place, and we're thinking about doing this instead. And in fact, at that time, they were going to reduce the age of child consent to the age of 12, right? With parental approval, which we know what that would have resulted in. And so that kind of was very telling at the time. Okay, so going back to Lawrence Macaulay, he didn't want the SOR being brought in. So I thought, how do I get past him? And so I went to Ralph Klein. I was in Alberta at the time. I was living there. And so I phoned up Ralph Klein's office, knew his secretary from all of the advocacy work that I was doing at the time. And she said, yeah, I'll bring it to him. I think he'll be interested. So we ended up talking on the phone, and I ended up meeting him at a live event as well, where I spoke with him again and said, listen, this is the situation. The Justice Minister of Canada has no interest in an SEX offender registry, and we need this. We need to have some kind of deterrent that they would be publicly held. And also, then we would be able to actually just go onto the computer, put in the name and see, because at that time, all the computers in Canada weren't linked up. And so it took months. If you wanted to know if someone had been an offender, being convicted or whatever, they would actually spend about 3 months going across the entire country, going from precinct to precinct to precinct, office to office to office in Canada, police office, and looking to see. And it was barbaric. So we really needed this in order to simplify things, for our justice and our legal system and the police department. Okay, so I went to Ralph Klein and said, Ralph, would you please consider bringing the SOR into Alberta? And if we can start with one province, maybe we can go across the whole country. So he said yes. So within that year, we had the SOR in Alberta, and it was a big thing. We launched it. Woohoo! So then I thought, okay, next. So I had a meeting with Ralph Klein again, and I said, would you please bring it to the Premier's conference, because you're meeting with all the premiers and you're hosting it this year. Would you please, I think he was hosting it that year, and so would you please bring this to all the premiers to see if they'll bring it into their provinces as well? Wouldn't you know it, they all voted on it 100%, and so it was hitting the news that every single province was going to have an SOR, SEX offender registry, right? And so Lawrence Macaulay came back and he said, no. You're not allowed to do that because this is a federal matter and you can't do this, provinces. So you have to leave it up to us. And we responded in letters saying, you have failed to respond. And if you're not going to do it, then, the provinces are going to do it. He came back and said, no, you can't. It's a federal issue. So long story short, it took about another year and a half of going through various bills, creating a bill, writing a bill, going in front of Parliament, meeting with all the Justice Committee members of Canada. I was a federal government witness. I was one I believe that was the one where I had the president of the police association. I had the that was Tony Canavino beside me, and then Sergeant Paul Gillespie was on the other side, and then Alan Borovoy was at the end, and he was a civil liberties lawyer, and we know about the civil liberties now, don't we? Yeah, it's all come out, right? And so it was a really interesting, gathering. So I have to say that without Ralph Klein and his bravery, bringing this to the Premier's convention and saying, enough to you, the federal government, if you're not going to do it, we're going to do it. And he changed the laws. So without him, we wouldn't have had that across Canada. He protected the kids. He put kids first. And I want to, hats off to Ralph Klein. I hope that they do something in his honor in Alberta, because he truly was a trendsetter. This was a man who was a reporter back in the days when there was actual reporters, investigative reporters, right? And so he was about justice. He was about peace. And he worked very hard to protect the children. I know it firsthand, and I witnessed it firsthand. So I wanted to say, thank you, Ralph Klein. You were a trailblazer. And for that, you made my life a lot easier. It was really great working with you, Ralph. And yeah, that's it. So, hats off to Ralph Klein. I hope you join me in that. Much love to everyone. We'll chat soon. Bye now.